All right. Where's the volume then? Okay, so we're gonna go to the next question, which will be question 50. All right, so let's see the answer. Okay. Okay, um so two got it right, and then someone hold on, let me let this person in. Sorry about that. Hey Christina, you can put the code in. We just started, if you can hear me. Okay. So did anyone have any question about how to like to remember um the psychosexual stages? And I'm gonna show like what I do to
What you mean, like in
remember.
detail?
Yeah, like so to remember the order of it, because sometimes it
Oh,
can get confusing. Um, and I did a slide about it. And then also, does anyone have any questions about the stages? So this is how I remember it in a mnemonic way. So old age people love grapes. That way you can always remember the order in which it goes. And then and I can send you these slides too, so you don't have to write them down. And then here are the psychosexual stages. Um, and so we have oral, which is from birth to 1 years old. Erogenous zone, pleasure is derived through oral activities. Two, anal, 1 to 3 years of age. Children begin potty training, withholding or expelling feces. Um, you have the phallic, which is 3 to 6 years age. 6 years of age. Boys are more attracted to their mother, while girls to their father. Penis and clitoris masturbation. And four, latency, 7 to 11 years of age. Children spend more time and interact with same-sex peers, little to no sexual motivation. And then you have genital, which is adolescents, are attracted more to the opposite sex peers, penis or vaginal sexual intercourse. Very, very graphic. Did anybody have any like questions about this or wanted to go over it again? And let me know if the mnemonic way of remembering it helps you. So old age people love grapes. All right. Then we can go to the next question then. Okay. All right. So this one can kind of be a throw off because I didn't know about Eleanor Gibson until I read Rosenthal. And since those of you who have the book, if you want to read the explanation, you can read it. If not, I can just go over it. So let me know if anybody want to jump in and read the explanation from the Purple Rosenthal book. We can go through it. All right. Eleanor. All right, so let me just go through the book. Okay, so that is question number 51. So Eleanor Gibson researched the matter of depth perception in children by utilizing the visual clip. So what she did was she did an experiment to see if it's innate that we use what we call from the bottom up. So that we use our senses first from our body and then we internalize the information later. So what she did was, and I thought I had made a slide of it, is what she let me see if I can find it. Okay, this is it right here. So she used, this is called the visual cliff. Can everyone see that one? The picture?
Yes.
Okay. So she had
Yes.
okay. So she had a mom, she had put a baby right here between the ages of 6 months to 17 weeks. And she put the mom on this side to see with a toy to see if the baby would come to her. And the baby did. So when they put the mother on the other side, because it looked like the baby could fall, a lot of babies didn't go that far because they felt that they would fall down and hurt themselves, or at least it wasn't safe. So that was just the visual clip, and that was just more so of why the answer is the way it was. Does that make sense to everyone? So it's the apparatus known as the visual cliff, and it's about depth perception. And let me know, hop in if you have any questions about anything. Okay. So empiricist. Has anyone heard of that term before?
Nope. It's the first time that I ever seen this.
Okay. So empiricism grew out of the philosophy of John Locke in the 1600s. So according to this theory, scientists can learn only from objective facts. So that means they learn through experiences more so than acquiring knowledge from school or etc. So it's saying that we learn through our, similar to the five senses, what was with with Eleanor Gibson, is similar to that, with that kind of philosophy, that we learn through experience rather than what we can learn from like school, etc. like that. So remember that empiricism is often said to be the forerunner of behaviorism, and you can pick up a point on a test that you'll be taking. So if you think about the term empiricism, you just think behavior, utilizing your senses to make sense of the world. Let me know if that clarifies it for you. Anybody have any questions about the explanation? Okay. And this is more so like statistics, and I get it because like the word quantitative, you think, oh yeah, statistics, but statistics development is not like a phrase that's like used. So it wouldn't be that one, and all the above would not fit that as well. Okay. And we just talked about that. Yep. And then for psychometric, that's more so research and statistics. So definitely wouldn't be that one. So you think of empiricist, you think of behavior, you think of through we learn through our senses. And so, and you look at this word development. Psychometric is more of a measuring apparatus to measure for research and things of that nature. All right. Okay. So those who chose D for the correct answer. And the way that I remember it is for Harry Hollow, I think happy Harlow monkeys or something like that, like just to make me remember, oh, okay, it's with the monkeys. And if I made a slide in regards to that. So Harry Hollow, he's a psychologist. He did an attachment study with monkeys during the 1950s. He conducted what was called the wire mother experiment. He separated infant monkeys from their mothers immediately after birth and placed them in cages with access to two surrogate mothers. One was made of wire and one covered in soft terry cloth. In the first group, the terry cloth mother provided no food, while the wire mother did, in the form of the attached baby bottle containing milk. Both groups of monkeys spent more time with the cloth mother, even though she had no milk. The infant would only go to the wire mother when hungry. This supports the evolutionary theory of attachment and that it is the sensitive response and security of the caregiver that is more important than the provision of food. And then I was able to get a picture of the experiment. So you think of Harlow, you just think of hungry monkey. You know what I mean? So something like that'll help you remember that. All right. Okay. So, Sue had chose organism, probably saying that completely wrong. I so messed up with this word. And then two other people chose behaviorism. Does anyone want to go over what made them have that choice? What was the key words that they picked up?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead, Nathaniel.
Antithesis of disposition holds.
Mm-hmm.
So we already talked about forget the thirds or whatever have you, but it being quantitative and imperialist.
Mm-hmm.
So we said that was behaviorism was considered to be a behavior,
Mm-hmm.
and the opposite of behavior will be something not learned, which is organic.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's how I deduce that.
Okay. So the organism ismic psychology is a movement in psychology based on the theory that the individual is made up of elements composing of a single organized system, and the element in that system cannot be evaluated. So it's saying like pretty much a person is whole, right? Like you said, it's innate. And it is that reason it's like it's organic. So if you think about the like this, like you said, the antitheses of this position holds that the developmental strides are organism. Um, Anybody have any questions about that one or need more clarification? And it's also a holistic model, like we're already whole. So if you think of this word here, you're gonna antithesis, you're gonna think of organism, whole, the act of being whole, being complete, having innate abilities already. All right. Okay, great. Sensory motor. So we look at this chart that I pulled up. Get it real quick. Let's see if I can make it bigger. So look at Piaget's stages of cognitive development. You have sensory motor, which is reflexes, right? Imagine looking, hearing, touching, mouthing, grasping. So it's like all about using all your reflexes to see and taste the area around you. And then another mnemonic way I remember them in order is using this term, some people can fly. So you have sensory, pre-operational, concrete, and formal operational. Okay. And this will be given to you so you can just look at it too as well. So each week I'll be providing slides for what we talk about. Anybody have any questions about that? About the reflexes? Does anyone need me to go over pre-operational stage? Or are we okay?
Sure, you can go over the stages.
Oh,
Oh no, never mind.
go back after this. It's fine.
Hmm. Okay.
Made a revelation?
I second guessing myself, but I picked the right answer. I picked the right answer.
All right, okay. A mother had a toy behind her back and a young child does not believe the toy exists anymore. The child has not yet mastered. It's choice D, A and C. Object permanence and then representational thought. So object permanence meaning that because the object is not there, doesn't mean that it's still not there. Like it's behind a wall, but it's still there. It hasn't went anywhere, disappeared, dissipated, or anything. And then to have the representational thought is to be able to come to the understanding that that's what that is. Like when you play peekaboo and the kid is like, oh my gosh, like freaking out because they don't see you, but they don't realize you're still behind that whatever you're hiding behind. So if we go over we have sensory motor, 0 to 2 years old. Like I said, explore the world through the senses and actions, looking, hearing, touching, mouthing, gasping. And at this stage of development, you have object permanence. The goal is to have object permanence and stranger anxiety. So like around most kids are not going to be trustworthy of, other people. And it's similar to Erickson's trust versus mistrust, as well. From 2 to 7 years of age, you have pre-operational, represents and refer to objects and events within the world or uses images, uses intuition rather than logical reasoning, believe inanimate objects possess human feelings and emotions. At this point, at this age, you want to develop pretend play and egocentrism. So egocentrism is like, for example, if a kid is walking down the street and he's like, the moon's following me, but it's like, why would the moon be following you? And that's like the ego, because it's about me, 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 me. They have a sense of just me at that point. But they also have the imagination of pretend play. At 7 to 11 years of age, you have concrete operational. You're able to conserve, reverse their thinking. So if something happens, they know that can be reversed. So if someone's playing peekaboo, they know it can be reversed and be like, oh, you're there again. And they can classify objects, they can think logically, can understand analogies, but only about concrete events. So solid things that are simple, solid things that are observed. At this point, they develop conservatism, mathematical transformations like 1 + 1, or like any kind of math that they're learning throughout the years. They're learning to use more complex thinking. Between 12 years and up, you have formal operational use of abstract thinking, about hypothetical events and situations. So they're able to say, if I do this, this might happen. You know what I mean? They're able to make a uneducated guess or even an educated guess about something. They're considered logical possibilities, systematically examine and test their hypotheses. They have abstract logic, potential for mature and moral reasoning. So they become more complex, but they also are able to be more mature in what they're thinking and using that with moral reasoning. Okay. Okay. The schema, a mental representation of the real world of permanency and consistency of objective occurs in the sensory motor. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about the schema?
You might explain a little bit more, even though I wrongly clicked that one when I was reading the choices and I just put that one. But do you mind explain a little bit more about this question, please?
Okay, sure. Okay, so the schema is like an abstract concept. It refers to like our ability to understand that there can be a hierarchy of categorization. So like a one is higher than a two, but not being able to understand exactly like what that entails. So a schema is a pattern of learning, thinking, perceptions, and ideas and actions to make sense of the world. It simply describes it as the way that we see things. So the schema, like the question here, the schema of permanency and consistency of objective occurs in the sensory motor. So at that age, they're learning to put blocks in the right area. So if they have a square, right, then they're going to try to put that into a square, but they're not exactly sure what that looks like. So they're using their sensory motor to make sense of that. A schema is just how we think of things, how we make sense of things. So if a child is trying to put that square into a circle, they know it's not going to fit no matter how many times they put it in there. But once they're able to find out how to put that square into the actual square shape, then they'll continue to do that. And that's how they build on making a mental representation of the real world, because that's happening in real life. They can't use their imagination to make it make sense or make it fit. They have to use a reality that a square is going to go into a square hole. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. All right. So if the correct answer is D, if you think of in the book, it also has a good way to remember. If you think of John Bodley, probably saying Bowlby, you think of B for bonding. And I'll review the slide with you that I put. So John Bowlby is a psychoanalyst. Bowlby's evolutionary theory of attachment suggests that children came into the world biologically pre-programmed to form attachment with others, and it's mainly the mother, because this will help them to survive. A child has an innate, inborn need to attach to a main attachment figure, and this is called monotrophy. Bowlby suggests that the nature of monotrophy conceptualized attachment as a visual link to one person, meant one thing. If the maternal connection did not exist, or if it broke, serious consequences would occur, and this would possibly include psychopathy without effect. Bowlby's theory of monotrophy led to formulate his hypotheses of maternal deprivation. And so when a child doesn't have that attachment, then they can become aggressive, or they have all these unmet needs, and then they act those things out. And so that's where you have the psychopathology that comes into play, because it builds on that kind of aggression, because they don't have that attachment that they need to survive. And so in order to survive, they feel like they just have to be aggressive in order to get their needs met, because they didn't get it in the most natural way. So you think of Bowlby, you think of bonding, the need to bond in order to have the natural innate attachment, mainly source of the mother. And when that doesn't happen, the consequence is psychopathology, which can lead to aggression. Anybody have any questions about that? Okay. So yes, for those who got that one right, so they appeared to be autistic. So you talk about Harlow, like you talked about the monkeys, um, and when he did a multitude of experiments, but he found that when monkeys are placed in that isolation, like example for the first few months, they imitate what appears to be autistic. They don't have good communication. They have poor eye contact. They isolate. Typically, think of the symptoms that are in a DSM-5 now. The monkeys would be prone to experience that because they don't have the attachment that they need. Okay. So yes, become fixated. The way I remember this is that, like, for example, if a child becomes severely traumatized, he or she is fixated. And as they become adults, people, and I'm quite sure some people probably heard the term, oh, he's so anal or she's so anal. And it's like they're so like rigid and stiff and they're stingy, or like, they'll use those terms. So if a person becomes, if they don't, like, in a sense, graduate from those levels of the psychosexual stages, and they become fixated. They might smoke a lot of cigarettes because it's oral. They haven't resolved those issues. So that's what that means. If they become traumatized and something happens and they're not able to go from those stages in order, then they're fixated on that. Okay, I see you, Michelle. All right. An expert who has reviewed the literature on videos and violence will conclude that A, watching videos tends to make children more violent. And when you think about answering these questions, just don't try to think of it as how you would answer it, but more so what the those who take in a national exam or those who make the national exam would think about it. But experiments in the book, it says experiments have demonstrated that even nursery school age children display more violent behavior after observing violence. Other researchers emphasize that the more we see, hear, and read about violence, the less it bothers us. We behave in more violent manner. So you kind of get decentralized. Like you just be like, oh, somebody's getting beat up. And it's just like you don't emotionally connect anymore. So for example, if a kid is watching a wrestling uh, show and then they go to school and they practice that, they are learning violence in that fashion. So you think about it like that. Okay. I see someone got in at the last moment. A counselor who utilizes the term instinctual technically means it. So it would be D, behavior that manifests itself in all normal members of a given species. So you think of instinctual, you think of instinct, you think of innate. That's how I remember it, because it said that we're all born with some kind of innate ability that all species have. It might not be the same kind of innate thing that we do, but we're all born with instincts, like instincts to survive, instincts to nurse, instincts to like grab and touch and feel around the world. So those things. Looking at the behavior results from unconscious aggressive. That would be more so with Sigmund Freud, because he talks about aggression being repressed memories or repressed feelings that have been unresolved with the same sex, and castration anxiety. Anybody have any questions about that one? The word ethology, which is often associated with the work of Conrad Lorenz, refers to B, the study of animals' behaviors in their natural environment. So we go back to ethology, you think of innate, imprinting. The key words here is Conrad Lorenz, and if you know what he's known for with his theory, he understands or states that we are born with instincts to imprint on other people. So when we're first born, like an infant might just look at the mom the whole time because the baby has been in the mom's womb, been hearing the voices of the mom, and is able to recognize the mom. And so the baby head will follow the mom around the room, and etc. like that. And in the book, it says Conrad Lorenz is best known for his work on the process of imprinting and instinctual behavior in goslings and other animals, in which the infant instinctually follows the first moving object it encounters, which is usually the mother. Lawrence used himself as the first moving object, and the newborn geese followed him around instead of following the real mother. This illustrates the principle of critical periods, which states that certain behaviors must be learned at an early time in the animal's development. Otherwise, the behaviors will never be learned at all. Okay. And let me know if you have if you need any other questions answered. Okay. A child who focuses exclusively on the clown's red nose but ignores the clown's other features would be illustrating the Piagetian concept of concentration. And even if you didn't know exactly what like what this entails exactly, but you know concentration means focus, right? And you have the key word here, focus. a child who focuses exclusively on the clown's red nose. And then you know that is concentration because the child is concentrating on their red nose and is forgetting about everything else. Concentration occurs in the pre-operational stage and is characterized by focusing on key features of a given object or situation while not noticing the rest of it. Egocentrism in choice A refers to the pre-operational child's inability to see the world from anyone else's vantage point. And I talked about that earlier, like the moon's following me. Like the moon is not following you. You feel that important that the moon's following you. Okay. So let me know if you need any other deductive processing. That's not there. And then formal abstract reasoning, that's the last level. And that's when the child is older, 12 and up. Okay. PJ wrote that teachers should. Oh, you all got that right. Awesome. Anybody have a idea of why they chose that answer?
I I don't know. I just choose that one, but I need to understand. I'm just guessing luck.
That's the intuition right there. Okay. Good, good. This is 66. So the only correct answer is D. Um, he felt that during the formal operation stage, which begins at 11 or 12, a child learns best from his or her own actions, not lectures, and his or her interactions and communications with peers rather than adults. Piaget, nevertheless, was quick to point out that he did not consider himself an educator, but rather a genetic epidemiologist. Epistemology is a branch of philosophy that attempts to examine how we know what we know. William Glasser is choice B, is a father of reality therapy. So that would be it. So if you think of Piaget, you think during the formal operation area between 11 and 12 that he feel like you can learn more from interaction and experience more so than just sitting in the classroom. But yep, you got that one right. Anybody else want to add anything to it? Why they didn't choose any other questions or the other options?
I think my teacher brain kicked in. I just saw a teacher and I just went with it.
Okay, there you go. There you go. All right. Anybody else want to chime in? It definitely wouldn't be Glasser. This has Piaget has nothing to do with William Glasser and IQ. No, definitely doesn't have anything. So it's like even though you might not know this is the right answer, if you look at the options, you can eliminate based on what theories or what information you know does not mix with Piaget. And that's what like I did during my test. I eliminated. It's always going to be 4 possible answers and 2 of them are definitely not going to be as strong as the other one. Then you're going to have 2 that are the best answer and you're going to choose which one is the most logical answer that you know will make sense. Okay. All right. So PJ's pre-operational stage includes the acquisition of a symbolic schema. Anybody want to talk about why they chose that answer? What kind of what did you remember that helped you remember the correct answer? Or anyone just choose it and it was like it had to be it?
The question about schema before, and when it was done in the beginning stages of 0 to 2 or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you go back to the right here, so the pre-operational stages 2 to 7 represents and refer to objects and events in the world of images. So instead of using physical appearances, they use more of mental representation. That's why they have pretend play. Right. So instead of looking at like, oh, peekaboo, mommy's not there, then they can use their imaginations. Well, what if my imaginary friend wasn't there? Or you know what I mean? Start using more of their mental power than more so like physical. Um, And so, if you think of symbolic schema, you're going to think about symbolic schema happens in the pre-operational stage because the schema is how you make sense of the world, mental representation, through play and through experiences, not more so through physical with the peekaboo anymore. That's mostly used at the beginning of 0 to 2, which is the sensory motor stage. Mastering conservation doesn't happen at this time. In the final stage, you already know that's the formal operation, so you know that's not it. And it wouldn't be all the above because all of these do not fit together. Mhm. Okay, good. We all got that one right. Um, because you know that Sigmund Freud and Eric Erikson, they both were psychoanalytical thinkers. Sigmund Freud was more psychosexual. Eric Erikson was psychosocial. But they did not believe that everything was psychosexual. That was Sigmund Freud. Eric Erikson didn't believe that at all. He thought that we learn through experiences. Developmental stages are primarily psychosocial. No, they both don't agree on that. And then a person can proceed to a higher stage even if a lower one isn't accomplished. No. So we know that each critical period has to be successfully um, achieve before you can move on to the next stage, which is like the oral. We talked about that earlier, smoking the cigarettes. Well, maybe he didn't have his oral needs met, or whatever that would mean. And then Eric Erikson, the trust versus mistrust. Like if you're a baby and you learn that you can't trust someone, you're always going to be scared of attachment. You're going to grow up and have anxious attachment styles, etc. So it's going to lead to a lifelong issues of your development. Awesome. Sex role socialization. The tendency for adult females in the United States to wear high heels is best explained. Definitely not by the principle of negative reinforcement. Lorenz imprinting, no, we talked about that earlier. And ethological data makes no complete sense at all. So it's reinforced by the sex roles that is put on by society.
Yeah, I thought about bonding after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was hoping.
Yeah.
I was gonna go over that.
Mm-hmm.
Yo, the sequence of object loss, and this is the part where you might get it tripped up with object permanence or something, or concentration, but no, which goes from protest to despair. If you look at attachment, keywords attachment, and you didn't hear that before, or Adler, Eric Erickson, he did talk about trust versus mistrust, but he never used the word detachment. Only person that used the word detachment, if you think about it, will bold by, you think of bonding, think of detachment, think of a child of the monkey exhibiting symptoms of being on the autism spectrum, right? Like if they don't have that, then they lose all that communication and all those basic needs and stuff like that. But yep, that's how you did it, Nathaniel. Did anybody have any questions about that one? For those who had chose Eric Erickson.
I was actually just like Nate. I was like literally right when I pressed it, I was like, I should have chose the last one, but I didn't.
Right.
You gotta trust that first instinct because it's
I
usually
know.
right.
And that always trips me up. Like I literally, as soon as I like find the answer is wrong, I always like second guess myself.
Just stick to it. And then like if you don't, just see if you can find a keyword. Like you think of detachment. Has Eric Erickson ever used detachment? If you know Eric Erickson, he doesn't use those words. But if you think of bold by, you think of bonding, you think of detachment. Imagine the monkey in the corner just by itself without the mom, the first couple of months of birth. So if you even on the test, like you can still flag questions on the NCE and the CPCE. And sometimes like if you really truly don't know, you can flag it. But if your instinct's telling you to pick it and move on. Because if you think too much about it, then you're gonna pick the wrong one. Okay. Um, was anyone surprised by the answer for the individual who got C? I mean, because it's
I
still
just would
C
like to say,
too. Yeah,
I
it's
would
still
like to
C.
say, some of the controversial questions are usually what you perceive them to be.
Say that last part again.
What you perceive them to be.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta think about where this information is coming from, right? It's coming from experiments that were done a long time ago, Western culture, European thinking. Like at this point, I used to work in school and I felt that girls were way more aggressive, but it's not about what we think, it's about what's the national take on that, right? You can't make it personal. You just gotta pick which one you would think they would choose, not you. You know what I mean? Like what was during that time. So yeah, it would be B and C. Okay. Okay, so two brothers began screaming at each other during a family counseling session, the term that best describes the phenomenon. It's definitely not a primal scene. Preconscious psych processes, those are words that are Freudian. So we know it's not that. And then the basic ID, that is more so by Lazarus. And that's behavior, affect, sensation, imagery, cognition, interpersonal factors. Definitely not that. So sibling rivalry. Think of it, you and your sibling used to fight all the time or argue all the time. It's sibling rivalry. You guys are trying to fight for dominance and power. And it's and it happened during family counseling. A preschool child's concept of casualty is said to be animistic. This means the child attributes human characteristics to inanimate objects. Thus, the child may fantasize that an automobile or a rock is talking to them. And this happens during PJ's pre-operational period from 2 to 7. Remember, we talked about imagination and we talked about egocentrism. Because why would a rock be talking to you? Why would a car be talking just to you? So it's like they only see things from their perspective. They don't realize, or they're not able to have abstract thought yet at that point. So when you think about anything with imagination, anything like talking to them or the moon or something that you know is most likely not true. They're using their imagination and they're being egocentric about it because it's about them at that time. Wouldn't be Freud, Carl Jung, anima and animus is just the use of feminine and male traits. So that wouldn't be that. And then ego identity would almost be Freud, but he doesn't use that word identity either. So it wouldn't be that one. And Freud's wish fulfillment was nothing that was ever used that I can remember. So you just eliminate if you know what these terms are, and then we'll go over that too in the book. But if you know like the basic terms, you can just eliminate that, and then it had to be this. Okay. All right, great. Elementary school counseling and guidance services is fairly new. Because you remember back during the war, the only thing that was more prevalent was vocational. And it was more so when people were coming from the war, they were more so displaced. And it was just focusing on how can they adjust to a new work environment, not being in the war and all that stuff like that, just to help people find jobs. And also it was used for like ASRAB, like testing, all that stuff. But fairly new is having counselors and guidance counselors in school. And in the 1980s, some state departments of education made elementary school counselors mandatory, and needs to say the number of jobs in the area flourished. So just recently, we started to be as prevalent as we are today. So it'll be like the 1980s, and like 1960 and 1980s. Okay. All right. Research related to elementary school counselors indicate, correct answer, that these counselors are effective, do make a difference in the children's lives, and more counselors should be employed. And I see someone chose A, counselors of this ilk work hard, but just don't seem to have an impact. And that's very subjective, even though B could be, but we're looking at the best answer. And considering that they have more counselors now in school, they have that because they feel that more counselors will be more effective in school based upon that research. And then from the previous question, someone had chose World War II, and it became popular during that time. World War II occurred between 1939 and 1949. And getting counselors into school occurred around the 1960s. So it didn't happen around the same time period. Anybody have any questions about that?
No, ma'am.
All right. Okay. So B, according to Yale research by Daniel Levington, so B, 80% of the men, 80% of the men in the study experience moderate to severe midlife crisis. And then C, an age 30 crisis occurs when men feel it will be too late to make later changes. So if you think about midlife crisis, oh, he's having a midlife crisis, you go out buy like an expensive car, and you think of just about the study that was done at Yale. So just equate it to that. I did get some information about David Levinson in more detail. It's pretty thick because it has a lot of information in here. And I just put in each area, and considering this 1002, I'm gonna let you all read that and we can come back to it at the next one. So we can do one more question. So you think of David Levinson, you think of midlife crisis at age 30. A study done that year where 80% of men experience that. Erickson's middle age stage 35 to 60 is known as generativity versus stagnation. Generativity refers to all the above. If you think of generativity, you think of being generous, giving back. The ability to create, work, or raise a family. So that's how you give back. You raise your family, you raise your children to be an extended version of you. It's the opposite of stagnation. So you're just not like just sitting around being sad. And that's the other level of intimacy and isolation, also with Erickson's stages of development that we could talk about later. The productive ability to create a career, a family, to pretty much have a purpose at that point. So it'll be all the above. Okay. So let me stop sharing the screen. Okay, so it is now 10:04. If anybody want to give like any feedback about how they felt this session went, or any suggestions about the next session, we could still quickly go over the rest of these questions and maybe not be as detailed. I'm gonna send you the slides so that you can review them. And then we can just go through those questions so that we can move on to the next chapter of the book. But anybody had any comments they want to make or any suggestions before we end it? And if it was helpful?
Definitely, it was helpful. I
Good.
appreciate your time as well once again, and I see how you structuring things a little bit, more in detail. So you on the ball now. You know,
Yeah.
passing tests and putting your PowerPoints together. Yeah,
I mean, I love doing it. So,
absolutely.
yeah. Anybody else? I thought I heard somebody else wanted to chime in, quite possibly.
Yes, just like Nathaniel said, you on the ball, you passed everything. So we're just trying to strive and attain just to be like you. So thank you so much just for putting everything together, and we truly, truly appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. I appreciate you all being here too.
I just want to say thank you so much, and I like the way that you explain it, break down each questions, and I heard in so different term that I haven't seen before. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. I'm glad it was very informational to you.
Likewise, I agree with everyone else. I also like how the little strategies you give us and like how to remember each thing was very helpful. So thank you.
Okay, no problem. And then I'll be sending out the slides right after we hang up. That way you can have them, and then we'll go over the rest of the questions like quickly, and then we'll move right on to the next chapter. And then I'll be sending out some homework to you all too, just to review the information. Other than that, we are free to go. Hope you all have a good night, and then we'll do next week Monday at 8:30.
Thank you so much.
Y'all have a
Okay.
good night.
Hey, no
Thank
problem.
you.
Okay, no problem.
Bye.
All right, good
Bye.
night. Bye.
bye.